Okay, I'm going to do this kind of fast because this is a tutorial for Nick. I will link him below with his web address for his YouTube channel. Um, I'm going to actually do a 2-chain method as opposed to the magic circle. I'm using a 6mm, just some random cotton yarn that I had um, sitting around. All right, I'm going to slip stitch that. Oh, I'm going to have to do 4. All right, so 4 chains, and then you go into that first one, close it up. Then we have the ring, right? Okay, and I'm going to actually do a stacked double crochet instead of a chain 3, but do a chain 3 if you want. So a stacked single crochet to make a double crochet. Now I'm going to do 2 more double crochets. I'm using the cat head as my center. Okay, so once I have 3 double crochets, then I'm going to chain 2. You can chain 1, but I think since you're learning, let's do chain 2 because we want a bigger space. Now I need to make 3 double crochets, US terms. And then chain 2. If you chained 1 on your 6, that's fine. That's 3 double crochets. So it's time to chain 2. And this cotton is not sliding over. There we go. We need 6 clusters of 3 double crochets. And again, I know I'm going really fast. This is not a true beginner tutorial, and I use that term loosely. There's a cluster of 3 double crochets, chain 2, and that's 3 of them. So I need 4. I need 6, not 4. 4 would be if I was doing a granny square. We're making a granny hexi or hexagon, so 6 sides. And my yarn is rolling all over the place, so that's fun. It decided it wanted to be the center of attention, apparently. Okay, I will slow down when we get to the part that I know Nick was stuck on. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters, chain 2. I gotta do 2 more clusters of 3 double crochets, US terms, trebles if you're in the UK or Australia. All right. But again, this is not a regular, I'm just really showing how you start with the a hexagon. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and chain 2. This will be our last one. Sorry, that tail I have really messed up, but that's fine. This is all going to get pulled out anyway for me. Hopefully not for you. All right. So I'm going to chain 2 because I've got 6 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chain 2. And then I'm going to go in the top of that stacked double crochet that I made. And I'm going to slip stitch. Okay. Now let's look at that real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chain 2 double spaces. You were good with this part. This is where we're going to need to do 2 more rows so you can get the pattern. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn it around. I'm going to chain 1, turn it around. So I'm going the other direction, and I'm going to do a stacked double crochet again as my first instead of a chain 3. You can do a chain 3 and then just go to the 3rd chain. It's just easier for me to go in at the end. We're going to make another corner here. So we're going to do the stacked double crochet and 2 more double crochets. So a total of 3 in that cluster. Chain 2. I'm going to close my T. I almost knocked it over, but that's That's why I put lids on my stuff. Well, plus my cat is insane and she'll just go in there. So all in the same space, we're doing 2 clusters with chain 2 in between. Again, you are welcome to do a chain 1. I just think it will be easier for you to see what's going on if you do chain 2. You don't have to. And you definitely don't need to use a 6mm hook. This is big, and I did that on purpose so that we could see the stitches. Okay, again, I'm on the back side. That's why we're seeing that tail. You can chain 1 here or not. I'm not going to. It's totally your call. You can chain 1 there. I'm not going to, and I'm going to go into that next corner, and I'm going to make another corner. So this is why we're going to need another row, because the next row is where this changes. But this is where you made a mistake. So in this chain 2 space, I do a cluster of 3 and then chain 2 and then a cluster of 3. And I know I'm going super fast. All right. And I hold my yarn weird, so don't try to figure that out. Hold your yarn how you hold your yarn. Okay, 1, 2, 3. That's the hardest. When I've helped somebody learn how to crochet in person, that's always the hardest thing, to teach people how to do their yarn. Now, again, you can chain 1 once I've done a cluster of 3 with a chain 2 space in that corner, but I'm not going to. You can, but just be consistent. I'm not going to, because that would make it even holier than it is, as in holes in it, not as in blessed by the Pope, holy, or whatever, holy you're thinking. All right, so chain 2, all in that corner. Okay. And so we've got 1, 2, 3. We got to do it 3 more times. So next corner, but again, each one of those is getting 2 clusters with chain 2 in between, and then no chain between for my version. No chain between the corners. Okay. Oh my goodness, that's all splitty, but we're going to ignore it. Again, I have challenges with cotton being splitty. Okay, that's a cluster of 3. 1, 2, cluster of 3. All right. All right. Okay. That's 3, chain 2, 3. So now I know I go in the next one, yarn over, go in, 3 double crochets. This, by the way, is absolutely not the only way to do this. This is just the way I thought would be easiest to show very quickly. Again, I am not doing this at beginner's pace at all. I know that. I apologize. If feel free to slow me down to 0.25 or whatever you need to. Okay. And then I will review each round before I switch it up. Okay. I did 2 clusters and a chain 2 in that corner. All right. Yarn over into the next one. If you're looking for a back to basics, please go check out Critters Crochet and the Spoony Stitcher. They're doing a whole back to basics series. You can learn from the most basic slip knot, which I didn't even show doing. Okay, there's 1 cluster, chain 2. Okay, I'm keeping an eye on the time too. I don't want this to be forever. I'm going to keep it at real time because I don't want to speed it up anymore. Now, before I close it up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 corners. Okay, so I need to find the top of that. Oh, I need a chain 2. That's important, right? No, because I'm going in between. Ignore that. Pretend I didn't do that. It's because we already have our 6 corners. I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that. Stacked single / double crochet. Chain 1 and turn. Now, here's what I want you to see. We're going to do a quick review. So I chained 1 and flipped it over. That's why this is on the back. on the back side. Chain 3 double crochets or a stacked double or a chain 3 and then 2 more doubles, making a cluster, chain 2, cluster, all in the same corner space. I did not chain 1 in between. Then I did a cluster, chain 2, a cluster. No chain space, cluster, chain 2, cluster, into the corner. Cluster, chain 2, cluster, cluster, chain 2, cluster, and a cluster, chain 2, cluster. Slip stitch into the top. Again, that's not a corner, so we're not putting a space. I'm hoping this this audio is not terrible. I moved the camera up in hopes that it would sound a little better. I'm using the cat to keep my work centered, by the way, if you weren't wondering, or if you were wondering. Okay, now what I want you to notice is because of the way I did this, I'm between the corners. So we're not in a corner. So we're not going to do a corner. This is why I needed to do 3 rows. So you could see what to do now that we finally don't have just corners. So I chained 1 and I turned. I'm going to do a stacked, or you can do a chain 3. Okay, your call. And then stacked, I go through that leg and then up and then through. Okay. And then I'm going to do 2 double crochets. And that's it, because this is not a corner. So if it's not a corner, I happen to end up not in a corner, it's just a cluster. So 3 double crochets. And again, you can do a stacked double, you can do a chain 3, whatever you want right there. Again, I didn't do a chain 1 after a cluster, leaving the spot, so I'm not going to do a chain 1 here. We're going to go into the corner and make a corner. Every time you're in a corner, you need to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. I know I'm going really fast. But you can slow me down if you need to, like on the speed setting. All right, into that space. Now, again, there are so many ways you can do this. This is not the only way to do this. Again, I am in a corner, so I had to do a 3 double crochets or a cluster, chain 2, 3 double crochets, no chain, into this space that is between the corners, 3 double crochets. So anytime you are not in a corner, you're just going to do a cluster of 3 double crochets. But you had to get the 6 corners set up with the duplications, the double there, to even get this extra space. All right. So then yarn over, we're at a corner, into that space, cluster, chain 2, cluster, and when I say cluster, 3 double crochets. All right. And my goodness. And again, cotton was a bad choice for this. At least it shows up really well against that pink. So hopefully you can see it well. And the reason cotton wasn't a good choice is because cotton, especially this is a cotton blend, even, but it still has a splitty tendency. Okay, between corners. This is not a corner, but it's that gap between the clusters. So just a regular double crochet cluster, not a corner. Let's make sure I did a corner. Yes, I did do a corner there. Okay. All of a sudden I was questioning that. All right. Yarn, and then we're headed to the corner. We've got 3 headed to the corner. Okay, I'm going to try to make this as fast as possible, but you feel free to slow your video down if you need to. I know many of you are experts and have other ways to do this, and I've even done this differently. I just felt like this was the easiest way to see what's happening. One more. Always count your stitches. It's not the end of the world if you only have 2, but it will look nicer if you make sure you have 3, chain 2, 3. Again, you can do chain 1s everywhere here. You do not have to do a chain 2 And I do recommend no chain between unless you really want to. Now you can see it's kind of getting ruffly. I'm going to show you that. Okay, this space is between corners, so just a cluster. Again, anytime it's not a corner, you're just going to do 3 double crochets. Okay, I'm really trying to keep an eye on the time here. Forgot to yarn over. I did 3 double crochets, so onto this corner. I'm going to lay that down for a second so you can see that again. I did my chain 2 and I'm going to wait. So there was a corner, not a corner, and now we're at a corner, so I did my chain 2. I got to do another cluster in that corner. Again, feel free to do a chain 1. You can do a chain if you want it to be airier, lacier, whatever the right word is. You can do a chain 1 between these, but I like to only put chains in my corners. All right, this is not a corner, cluster of 3. I need to finish this row to show you kind of what to do once you actually have the size you need. But I will review. Okay, making this as fast as I can. I apologize for the speed, but I really don't want a hugely long video. All right, that's a cluster of 3. I do double check that I have 3 stitches every single time. For a traditional granny style. Again, I'm doing the chain 2 to really show that corner. You do not have to do that. And you don't even have to do it the way I'm doing it all. This is just, to me, the most straightforward version. Okay. There's the gap. Yarn over, cluster right here. Many people don't like the turning it back and forth, turning it over. They like it on the right side all the time. There are other techniques to do that. If you're interested in that, you can look it up. But this is for you, Nick, if you or anyone else that wants. Like, again, this is a speed version, and I will review because I'm trying to keep this video it's already longer than I would want it. Okay. Oops, one more. See? I only had 2 there. Always check. Sets of 3. All right. Let's look at this. And you can see it's getting warped, I guess. This is where we started. So I'm going to connect in there. But let's review. So we did a stack double or a chain 3 right here. 2 more double crochets because it was not a corner. Then we made a corner in the corner, which is a cluster, chain 2, cluster. Again, you can do chain 1 there you want. Then we came over here. This is not a corner, so we just did a cluster. Then we get to the corner and we make a corner. Not a corner, so just a cluster. Corner, do a corner, cluster. And then corner, corners in the corner. And then that. And then a corner, and then a cluster, and then a corner. And now we're back to the beginning. We started with a regular cluster, not a corner. Again, there are other techniques that you end in a corner, so this is just this technique. So I'm going to slip stitch to the top of my stack. All right. I'm going to go ahead and chain 1. What you would do next is turn it over. And notice I've now got 2 gaps in here that are not corners. So I'm going to do a cluster here, corner, cluster, cluster, corner, cluster, cluster, corner, cluster, cluster, corner, cluster, cluster, corner, okay? And it will keep growing like that. You're going to end up with 1 more cluster on each side as the rows grow. So when you go to actually turn it into a hexagon, a hexi cardi, you're going to fold it like this, okay? Because if you fold it like this, I don't have a good demonstration. Wait, where's the one that makes it not? It needs to be shaped like an L is what you're trying to do when it's big enough. This is, this is actually too big for a Barbie, maybe for an American Girl doll. But that's how you do it, Nick, and that should get you on your way. But That's the pattern. Anything that's not a corner gets a cluster of 3. I thought I had 4 stitches there. No, it's just the stacked double. It looks funny. Anywhere that's not a corner gets a cluster. Corners always get cluster, chain, cluster. Okay, so every corner stays a corner. And then it starts to get warped. And the more rows you throw on there, the more warped it gets. But when you're ready to fold it and sew it together, you would be sewing along here, with the neck opening, so not all the way. But you want it to look like an L. Sometimes, and I don't know why I can't do it the quote unquote wrong way. There it is. Okay, if you fold it like that, that's not going to work. So you don't want it to look like that. When you're ready to actually, you want to fold it so it makes an L. Okay? All right. Hopefully that helped.